Hello everyone! Welcome to another card video. My name is Koren Wiskman, and I have some new goodies from my favorite things. So I made one card already using these products, but I think I have something else in mind. Both are going to be mini slimline. So I've never made a mini slimline card before. So this is my first mini slimline card. I had to look it up, the dimensions, which are 3 1/4 by 6 1/4. If something else popped up on the screen, I was wrong. Here is the card I made previously. I'm using the same products except for these awesome scenery dies that I used in the background. I'm not going to be using those today, but those are in the new MFT release. That set is called Serene Sunset. I'm also using the new connected stamp set and coordinating dies, as well as the Dear to Me stamp set and coordinating dies. I'm gonna put up this mop and get this party started. We're gonna use Arch's cold pressed watercolor paper today. We're gonna use my Inktense pencils by Derwent and a couple of shades of pale pink. I couldn't decide between these two, but ultimately I went with Barely There by Gina Designs. This is barely pink, but it is really, really nice. So I'm going to grab this postage stamp looking die from the Dear to Me coordinating die set, and I'm going to put them in a row across, but you could also do them down or like a postage stamp. How cool would that be? So here I've tried to cut them in a nice row on this mini slimline card front that I did cut down by another 1/2 inch, I believe, because I like that border around the edge. Now I'm stamping my deer, and let me tell you, you should give yourself more room. I stamped these suckers in a row like I wanted them to appear on my card, and it caused me more problems than it was worth. Spread it out. You got lots of room, spread it out. I am using MFT's hybrid ink in cement gray to try to pull off some kind of no line, low line coloring thing. And like I said, I stamped that onto Arch's cold pressed watercolor paper, and I'm using my Inktense pencils from Derwent. They behave a lot like watercolor pencils, but like I've learned in the past, the only difference between these pencils and watercolor pencils really are the fact that they're ink and permanent. So they're not going to react like watercolors do, or once you've put it on your paper, it's more permanent than watercolor pencils. But really, they behave very similarly. I really love using them, and I use them with my Tombow dual brush blender pen to draw out the ink. You can also use water. I like using the blender pen because I feel like it gives me the most control. So these pencils are pretty much my favorite because you can really control them. You can take your blender brush tip to the tip of the pencil and put down very small amounts of ink, or you can put your pencil right to the paper and put down anywhere, any kind of amount of ink, anything from a small little speck that you draw out to really hard lines that you draw out and really get an elaborate look. I hope that makes sense. But this is my finished deer. I did not paint a background. I thought about adding a blue sky behind them, but I think this looks fine. Here is where I had to draw lines to make sure that I was giving myself enough space to cut out all of my deer, because I had stamped them so close together, and then I had spaced that stamp die, the apertures so close together. I had cut them out so close together that I didn't think I was going to have enough room for my deer to live happily behind this. But it worked out for the best. It worked out, so we're good. I'm going to use the new connected stamps that are stamps and dies, and the Dear Sweet Friend sentiment to a dear sweet friend. So maybe it'll say, hello to a dear sweet friend. So I found these a little bit tricky to work with, but here is how I got the best results from them. These are small Alphabet stamps, they can be finicky sometimes. I really like using these stamp presses. I have this one from Diamond Press and also one by Fiskars with the foam feet. I really like the way they stamp, and I continue to use them even though I have multiple Misties. So I'm stamping them with Watermark ink onto that same Barely There cardstock. Once I feel like I have a good impression, I'm going to add some fine white detail embossing powder and then shake off the excess, but not too much. I just give it a little tap, boop, and that's it. Of course, I'm trying to spell hello, so I'm going to have to stamp these twice, but I ended up having to stamp them twice anyway because when I went to align the dies, I didn't align them so great. So they weren't cut out perfectly, and usually that doesn't bother me. But this time it really looked kind of wonky and funky, so I made this little template out of copy paper, and that really helped me cut them out with these non-see-through dies more easily. All I did was cut them first from a piece of white copy paper that was small enough to easily use, and then I line up the die over top the little template and tape that all down and run it all through the die cutting machine. Because it's copy paper, it doesn't add so much thickness that it's going to be hard for me to run through the die cutting machine with multiple layers. So, but if you line the copy paper up perfectly around the letter, you're more likely going to cut it out in a more eye-pleasing fashion. At least that's what I found. I'm sure you don't even have to use copy paper. You could probably pull this off by just using another piece of cardstock. But the copy paper is handy to have around for multiple reasons. So I was much, much happier with how they turned out with using the template than with me just trying to eyeball it and wing it, which is my usual go-to technique for most things. And you can absolutely reuse these templates and store them with the die set, and it would be super handy. So I'm stamping the sub-sentiment with this acrylic block here on the same Barely There cardstock and with white embossing powder. And this is, I know it's hard to see. I'm sorry. I like subtle. I'm sorry. But it did turn out really pretty. I like the white on that barely pink cardstock. It's really just nice and kind of classy. Not classy. I'm trying to say classic, like it's a classic style. I don't know what I'm talking about. I cut it into a strip using this mini paper trimmer that I have been loving by Tonic Studios. And here's how everything's looking so far. I'm just trying to put everything together to see how I like it and see if I need to change anything. I don't. So I'm using these very thin strips of foam adhesive, and I put them around the postal apertures, and then I kind of picked up the picture with the foam square or the foam adhesive so that I could just place it where I wanted it, if that makes sense. And then I'm going to add it to a white card base. Oh my gosh, another white card base. I did just order fog. I ordered like 4 things of fog cardstock. So don't worry about me. It's still there. It's still my favorite. And then I'm using half width foam squares to pop up the sentiment, both the hello and the sub sentiment, onto the card base. And that's it. I love these iCrafter tweezers. They're super tight, so they don't let go of things, and it's really nice. And that's it. The card is done, and it's super sweet. Those deer are so cute. I love them. I want to color some more with my Inktense pencils. I love using my Inktense pencils. Find me, find MFT on social media. Everything that not everything, a lot of the things that I use in the video will be linked below. And until next time. I love you guys so much. Thank you so much for watching. Say hi in the comments.